The Heretic Pharaoh, Akhenaten and the War of the Gods. Ancient Egypt, the land of the pharaohs, the pyramids, and the gods. For over 2,000 years, this civilization was the most powerful on earth. At its heart was religion. A complex world of over 2,000 deities, each with a name, a temple, and a priesthood. Amon, the king of the gods. Osiris, lord of the afterlife. Isis, the divine mother. This was an empire built on the worship of many. But then, in the 14th century before Christ, a single man rose and shattered this ancient order. He was Amenhotep IV. A young pharaoh with a strange appearance, a long face, a slender, almost feminine body, and a mind full of radical ideas. He looked at the vast pantheon of Egypt and declared them all false. There was only one true god, Aton, the solar disk. He changed his name to Akhenaten, meaning the spirit of Aton, and he plunged Egypt into its most profound religious revolution. He erased the old gods, closed their temples, and built a new city for his single deity. He was the first monotheist in recorded history, a figure so controversial that after his death, his name was erased from history and his image smashed to pieces. This is the story of the Heretic Pharaoh. The Silent Revolution. Amenhotep IV came to the throne around 1353 BC. He inherited a stable, rich, and deeply religious empire. At the top of the religious hierarchy was the cult of Amon, based in Thebes. Its priests were immensely wealthy and powerful, almost as influential as the pharaoh himself. The young king performed his duties for the first few years, building temples to Amon, participating in rituals. But behind the palace walls, a storm was brewing. The pharaoh was not satisfied with the old ways. He had a vision of a single, universal God, Aton, the light behind the sun, the creative energy that gave life to everything. This was not just a new God, it was a new philosophy. A God with no statue, no mythology, no wife, no rival. Just pure, absolute, life-giving light. In the 5th year of his reign, the storm broke. Amenhotep IV stood before his court and made an unthinkable declaration. The name of Amen, the king of the gods, was to be erased from every monument, every temple wall, every papyrus. The gods of Egypt were dead. He proclaimed himself the sole prophet of Aton and changed his name to Akhenaten. He then made a second, even more shocking decision. He would leave Thebes, the ancient capital of the pharaohs, the city of Amon, and build a new city from scratch in the middle of the desert, dedicated to his single god. The City of the Sun. Akhenaten found his place in a barren, crescent-shaped bay on the east bank of the Nile, a place where the sun rose between two mountains, creating the hieroglyph for horizon. He named it Akhenaton, the horizon of Aton. Today, we know it as Amarna. He built at a feverish pace, driven by his vision. Within a few years, a magnificent city rose from the sand. Vast open-air temples, unlike anything ever seen in Egypt, stretched towards the sky. There were no dark, hidden sanctuaries for a cult statue, because Aton was the sun itself and needed no hiding. The palaces were decorated with vibrant paintings of nature, of animals, of the royal family. The whole city was a hymn to light and life. It was here that Akhenaten retreated with his legendary queen, Nefertiti, and their 6 daughters. The art of this period broke completely from tradition. The pharaoh was no longer depicted as an idealized, flawless god-king. Instead, art showed him as he was, with an elongated skull, a long chin, a slender neck, a protruding belly, and thin legs. He was shown as a real human being, in intimate scenes of family life, kissing his daughters, playing with Nefertiti, all under the beneficent rays of the Aton. This was a human revolution, a rejection of the stiff, formal art of the past. It was a fleeting moment of radical honesty in a civilization built on eternal grandeur. The wrath of the old gods. While Akhenaten and his family lived in their sun-soaked utopia, a storm was gathering in the old capital, Thebes. The priests of Amon, stripped of their power and their immense wealth, were waiting. The common people, whose daily lives were intertwined with the worship of countless household gods, were confused and resentful. Akhenaten's religious revolution was an intellectual exercise, imposed from above. It offered them no comfort in their daily struggles, no magic to protect their children, no spells for a safe passage into the afterlife. Only the abstract, distant light of Aton. And behind the scenes, the empire was crumbling. The pharaoh was so obsessed with his spiritual project that he ignored letters from his vassals in Canaan and Syria, who were begging for help against invaders. The Egyptian empire was being lost, and the king was writing hymns to the sun. His isolation would prove fatal. In the 17th year of his reign, around 1336 BC, Akhenaten died. The circumstances are a mystery. Perhaps he died of a genetic disorder, a consequence of his unusual physical form. Perhaps he was poisoned by the priests whose world he had destroyed. His dream died with him. His son, the young Akhenaten, living in the shadow of his father's failed revolution, was soon forced by the restored priests to change his name to Tutankhamun, returning the kingdom to the god Amon. The old order returned with a vengeance. The city of Akhenaton was abandoned, and the desert sand began its slow work of burying the heretic's dream. The priests and new pharaohs set out to erase Akhenaten from history. His name was chiseled off king lists. His temples were dismantled and used as quarries for new buildings dedicated to Amon. His statues were smashed into 1,000 pieces. The echo of the heretic. The erasure was so successful that for over 3,000 years, the world forgot Akhenaten. Until the late 19th century, when archaeologists digging in the ruins of Amarna began to uncover strange, beautiful, and unsettling artifacts. A shattered statue of a pharaoh with an impossible body. The hauntingly beautiful bust of a queen, Nefertiti, which would become an icon of the ancient world. And the hymn to Aton, a poem written by Akhenaten himself, which was found carved in a tomb at Amarna. When this hymn was translated, the world of biblical scholarship was shaken to its core. It contained verses that were almost identical to Psalm 104 in the Bible. How manifold are thy works, O Lord! Thou makest darkness, and it is night. The earth is full of thy riches. The connection was undeniable. The Hebrew scribes who wrote the Psalms, centuries after Akhenaten, were echoing the words of the heretic Pharaoh. The question, then, is this: was Akhenaten the first monotheist? Did his vision of a single, universal God, born from the Egyptian sun, influence the birth of Judaism, the religion that would go on to shape Christianity and Islam? We may never know for certain, but the possibility is staggering. His great experiment failed. His city was buried in sand. His name was erased. But perhaps, just perhaps, the echo of his hymn to the sun, carried on the desert wind for 1,000 years, planted a seed in the human mind that would change the entire spiritual landscape of the world. He was not a saint. He was a fanatic, a tyrant, and perhaps a fool. But he was also a visionary who dared to look at the sun and see not a god, but the only God.